Hello and welcome to another video. My name's Chris. Blend If is one of the most powerful functions in Photoshop and can be used, as its name suggests, to blend two different layers together in various ways. But it seems to have an undeserved reputation of being difficult to understand and use. So in this video I'll explain the basic function in a very simple to understand way. I'll delve into one of the more advanced features, and then in a follow-up video I'll show various ways in which Blend If can be used in practice. So let's get started. So here we are in Photoshop with a simple two-layer document. Of course, because they're both in normal blend mode, you can only see the top layer. If I switch the top layer off, you can see the underlying layer. Now, before we get into Blend If, I just want to make sure everyone's up to speed with masking. Each of these layers, being a gradient fill, comes with a mask. So if I highlight the mask to make it active, you'll see it's white, which means that everything on that layer shows through. If I convert it to black by inverting it by pressing Ctrl and I, you'll see now there's a black mask and you can't see the top layer and you can see the underlying layer. So if I go back to the mask, invert it again, and so of course I can amend this mask in any way I want. So for instance, I could get the marquee tool, make a selection and fill that with black. Given that the foreground colour is black, I can do that by hitting Alt backspace and then deselecting. You'll now see that there's a black area in the mask which shows through the underlying layer. So that's the basis of masking. Of course, if I filled this area with grey, so let's do that. Let's go back and select this area, edit, fill, and we'll choose 50% grey. Now with the grey area, that is partially transparent, so you can see 50% of the current layer and 50% of the layer underneath. So that's how masking works, and Blend If is in effect a masking technique. So back with our document, I've rasterized, i.e. converted to pixel, these layers and removed the layer masks. So first of all, how do we get to Blend If? Well, you double click on the upper layer in the blank area to the right of the layer thumbnail. That brings up layer style, blending options, and Blend If is down here. And you'll see you have two sets of sliders, one for the current layer and one for the underlying layer. So how does Blend If work? Well, effectively it masks outer areas of the current layer. If you use the sliders on the current layer here, it masks by reference to the brightness of the pixels in that current layer or upper layer. If you use these sliders, it masks the top layer by reference to the brightness of the pixels in the underlying layer. And you'll see this 0 to 255. There are 256 layers of brightness for any given pixel, with 0 being black and 255 being white. So if I move the sliders for the current layer, part of the current layer will be masked out or disappear. So if I move this like that, it's removed the darkest pixels in the current layer. In fact, anything which is brightness level 40 or less has been masked away. You'll see this quite a sharp transition. If you press Alt or Option, you can split this triangle to have a much smoother transition. Similarly, if I go from this end and go this way, I'm hiding the very brightest pixels in this layer to show through what's underneath. And again, holding the Alt key, I can slide this to get a smoother transition. Now, if we go to the underlying layer, what that will do in effect is force through the pixels to show through the top layer, but what it's actually doing is masking the top layer by reference to the brightness of the pixels in the underlying layer. So if I move this slider, what I'm effectively doing is forcing the brightest pixels in the underlying layer to show through. In fact, anything that's 186 or brighter is going to show through. And again, by holding the Alt key, I can split together smooth transition. Similarly, if I go to the other end and move it this way, now I'm forcing anything which is a brightness level 90 or lower to show through, i.e. the darkest part of this layer. And again, if I hold Alt, I can split to get a smooth transition. So as I say, if you move the current layer sliders, you'll hide the current layer by reference to the brightness levels you choose. If you go to the underlying layer, you'll hide the current layer by reference to the brightness of the pixels in the lower layer. Or to put it another way, you'll force through either the darkest pixels or force through the brightest pixels of the underlying layer. So hopefully that makes sense. Having hopefully explained the basics, I now want to look at one further setting, which is this grey drop-down box here. So far it's been set to grey, but you can in fact set it to red, green and blue. And what that does is to enable you to target the pixels of that colour in a much more accurate way. And in order to understand that, we need to look at the channels panel. So here we have an image with red, green, blue and yellow, yellow being the opposite of blue. By the way, the opposite of red is cyan and the opposite of green is magenta. Now each pixel in the image is made up of an amount of red, green and blue. There are 256 levels available in each colour. So I brought up the info panel. If you look down here, the RGB values, if I go over the red, you'll see it's 254 red, 0 green and 2 blue. So virtually pure red. This one is 255 green, 1 red, 0 blue, again virtually pure green. And this one is blue 253 and 0 for red and green, so pure blue, just slightly below the maximum intensity. And this one, being the opposite blue, has 1 blue and then the maximum of red and green. So max blue, no red and green, 0 blue, max red and green, to give the opposite colours. Now this is reflected in the channels panel. So if we go to the channels panel, that's the RGB, the composite value in taking all the 3 colours into account. So if you look at the individual channels, so first red, you'll see first of all it's black and white because it's showing the amount of red in each sector of the image. So you'll see that the green and blue colours are black because they contain no red whatsoever. This is the red, so that's white because it has maximum red, as is yellow because yellow is made up of the full amounts of red and green. If we go into the green channel, you'll see that the green is white because it has maximum amount of green. The yellow is white because it has a maximum amount of green as well. And the red and the blue areas are black because they have no green in them. And finally the blue channel. So here the blue section is white because it has full amount of blue. Yellow has no blue in it, neither do red and green, so they're all black. The purpose of going into all this is so that you understand what this drop down does. If it's set to grey, then the pixels are hidden or shown based on the overall brightness of the whole image. But if you switch to one of the channel colours, then the information Blendif uses for brightness of pixels is the brightness shown in that particular channel. And as you saw, these can be markedly different. That's the red, that's the green, and that's the blue. So what you're actually looking for if you want to isolate a particular colour or area is to go into the channels and see which of them has the biggest contrast for the area you're looking to isolate. If, however, you're just using Blendif to adjust overall shadows or highlights, etc., then using the RGB channel and hence the grey setting in the drop-down box is the way to go. This will all become clearer if you watch my follow-up video giving practical examples of Blendif in action. The link is in the video description below. And one final trick which probably not many know with regards to Blendif, moving these sliders hides or shows the light and dark pixels in the image. But if you actually swap over the triangles, then you can in fact target just the midtones. So here for instance, we've still got the brightest pixels showing and the darkest pixels showing, but we've hidden all the midtones. So that's my explanation of BlendIF. If you found it useful, perhaps you could give the video a like and even consider subscribing. As I say, in the description below and in the box on the screen, there is a link to my follow-up video showing all this in practice. Many thanks for watching.